Number. The council discovered Earth's true name and immediately started panicking. The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council floated in the void of space, reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside, representatives from 47 different species gathered for what they assumed would be a routine session. Ambassador Hyun sat in the human delegation section, reviewing reports on his tablet. After 50 years of membership, these meetings had become almost boring. Trade agreements, border disputes, resource allocation. Nothing exciting ever happened anymore. That was about to change. Counselor Velthar, an ancient being whose reptilian species had been part of the council for over 10,000 years, stood at the central podium. His scaled hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge. This was unusual. Velthar never showed emotion. As head of historical records, he had seen everything the galaxy had to offer. Nothing should rattle him. Council members, Velthar began, his voice carrying through the chamber's translation system. 3 cycles ago, we dispatched Survey Team Gamma 9 to explore ruins on a dead world in Sector 7-4. They discovered something unprecedented. Rano. Hyun leaned forward with mild interest. Archaeological discoveries were always fascinating, even if they rarely affected current politics. Around him, other delegates shifted in their seats, equally curious. The ruins date back approximately 12 million years, Velthar continued. They belong to the first civilization, the oldest spacefaring culture we have ever documented. The team found a monument, perfectly preserved by the planet's frozen atmosphere. A holographic display materialized above the podium, showing an enormous black obelisk covered in strange symbols. The delegates murmured with appreciation. First civilization artifacts were incredibly rare. Most had been destroyed by time or cosmic events. Archivist Quinn has spent the last 3 cycles translating the inscriptions, Velthar said. The monument contains star charts and navigational data for thousands of worlds. But more importantly, it contains warnings. The murmuring stopped. Warnings from a civilization that had mastered faster than light, travel millions of years before any current species? That commanded attention. Along. End 4. A new hologram appeared, showing lines of translated text. Hyun activated his own translator to read along. The words made his blood run cold, though he didn't yet understand why. The monument lists forbidden worlds, Velthar explained. Planets that the first civilization deemed too dangerous to colonize, or even approach. These were not worlds destroyed by war or natural disaster. These were worlds where life itself had become something terrifying. The display scrolled through a list of coordinates. Each entry included a location and a name in the Old Tongue. Hyun recognized several of the coordinates. Modern council surveys had marked those systems as hazardous and off-limits. It was reassuring to know that ancient wisdom matched current understanding. Then, Velthar spoke again, and his voice wavered. One set of coordinates on this list corresponds to a world we know very well. A world that currently has a representative sitting in this chamber. Every delegate in the room sat up straighter. Hyun felt a prickle of unease crawl up his spine. Surely not Earth. Earth was pleasant. Sure, it had some weather and a few dangerous animals, but nothing that would frighten an advanced civilization. The coordinates match the 3rd planet in the Sol system, Velthar said quietly. Earth. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted questions in 47 different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. Hyun sat frozen in his seat, unable to process what he'd just heard. This had to be a mistake. Some error in the translation, or the coordinates. Velthar raised his hands, calling for silence. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. I understand your shock, he said. Archivist Quinn has verified the translation 17 times. There is no error. The first civilization designated Earth as a forbidden world. Its name in the Old Tongue translates most closely to the Cradle of Endings. That's ridiculous, Hyun said, standing up. His voice carried across the silent chamber. Earth is a garden world. We have forests, oceans, and moderate temperatures. There are far more dangerous planets in the galaxy. Velthar looked at him with an expression Hyun couldn't quite read. Was it pity? Fear? Ambassador Hyun, I need to show you something else. Archivist Quinn, please display the warning text associated with Earth's entry. The hologram changed. New words appeared in the common galactic language. Hyun read them aloud, his voice growing softer with each line. Here dwells death in 10,000 forms. The very air carries invisible killers. The water teems with microscopic devourers. The land breeds creatures of savage efficiency. Gravity crushes. Weather destroys. Life on this world has learned to survive where survival should be impossible. Any species born here will carry the mark of this crucible. They will be relentless. They will adapt. They will endure. They will be more dangerous than they know. Approach at ultimate peril. Silence filled the chamber. Every eye turned toward the human delegation. Hyun suddenly felt very exposed. This is absurd, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. We're not dangerous. We're peaceful. We've been model council members for 5 decades. Counselor Morath, whose insectoid species had a reputation for military excellence, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Ambassador Hyun, what is Earth's gravity compared to standard galactic baseline? Hyun blinked. About 1.2 times standard. It's slightly higher, but nothing extreme. And your atmospheric pressure? Also slightly higher. We've provided environmental specifications to all council members. Our visiting facilities are adjusted for comfort. Morath's compound eyes gleamed. Slightly higher. Ambassador, 80% of council species require mechanical assistance to function long-term in environments above 1.1 baseline gravity. Your world would crush our exoskeletons. You live in this environment naturally. You evolved there. Endo. Hyun opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He'd never thought about it that way. Humans just assumed everyone else was a bit weaker. It seemed rude to mention it. Another delegate, a floating gas being named Seph, spoke up. What about these invisible killers in the air? Does Earth have dangerous atmospheric composition? No, Hyun said. Just oxygen, nitrogen, and trace gases. Standard breathable atmosphere. And yet, Velthar said softly, Earth is teeming with microscopic organisms. Bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. Correct? Well, yes. But every planet has microorganisms. Not like Earth, Velthar said. He pulled up another display. This one showing medical data. We've analyzed samples from Earth. The sheer diversity and aggression of your microbial life is unprecedented. And yet humans live among these organisms without mechanical filtration systems. Your immune systems fight off invasions that would kill most species within hours. Hyun felt the walls closing in. Every fact Velthar stated was true, but hearing them laid out like this made Earth sound like a nightmare world. We're just adapted to our environment, he said weakly. Every species is. Precisely, Morath said, his voice grave. You are adapted to survive on a world that would kill us. The question we must now ask is this. What does that make you? The chamber fell silent again. Hyun looked around at the faces of delegates he'd worked with for years. Friends he'd shared meals with. Colleagues he'd laughed with. Now they all looked at him differently. There was fear in their eyes. Velthar cleared his throat. I am calling for an emergency recess. We need to investigate this matter further. I propose we examine all available historical records regarding Earth and its evolutionary history. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Number. The Council discovered Earth's true name and immediately started panicking. The galactic archives stretched deep into the artificial moon that housed them. Billions of records, from thousands of species over millions of years, filled the crystalline data matrices. Researcher Day stood in the deepest vault, a place few humans had ever been allowed to enter. Beside him, Counselor Velthar moved through the ancient filing systems with practiced ease. "The Council has granted us unlimited access," Velthar said, his clawed fingers dancing across a holographic interface. "We need to find every reference to Earth in the historical records." "Everything," Day nodded, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and dread. As a xenoarchaeologist, this was the opportunity of a lifetime. As a human, he was terrified of what they might discover. "Where do we start?" "With the first civilization's survey records," Velthar replied. "If they marked Earth as forbidden, they must have sent expeditions there. We need to find their reports." Hours passed as they dug through layers of data. The first civilization had been meticulous record keepers. They had surveyed thousands of worlds, cataloging life and assessing potential for colonization. Most reports were dry and technical. But then Day found something different. "Here," he said, highlighting a file. "Survey Mission 478. Destination: Sol System, Third Planet. Date: approximately 11.7 million years ago." Velthar pulled up the report. His scales paled as he read. This was a manned expedition. 6 crew members. They entered orbit and sent down probes. The probes detected complex multicellular life, high oxygen content. The crew decided to land and collect samples. "What happened?" Day asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Velthar scrolled through the report. They landed near a large body of water in a tropical region. Initial observations were positive. Abundant plant life. Warm temperatures. They collected samples of vegetation and small creatures. One crew member was bitten by a small flying insect. The bite was considered minor. They continued their survey for 6 local days. The report continued in clinical detail. On day 4, the crew member, who had been bitten, developed a fever. By day 5, he was delirious. On day 6, he died. The autopsy revealed that the insect had transmitted microscopic parasites into his bloodstream. The parasites had multiplied rapidly, destroying his red blood cells. "Malaria," Day whispered. They encountered mosquitoes carrying malaria. The crew attempted to continue their mission, Velthar read, but 2 more members fell ill. One touched a plant that caused severe respiratory distress. Another drank from a stream and contracted what the medical officer described as aggressive bacterial infection. The surviving crew aborted the mission and returned to orbit. Only 3 of the 6 survived to reach their ship. Day felt sick. A simple mosquito bite had killed an advanced alien. Did they not have immune systems? "They had immune systems," Velthar said quietly, "just not ones prepared for Earth." The report continues. The survivors recommended that Sol 3 be classified as a hostile biological environment and forbidden for colonization. "But that's just one report," Day said. "Maybe they were just unlucky." Velthar pulled up another file. Survey Mission 512. Destination: Sol 3. Date: approximately 9.3 million years ago. Different crew, different landing site. This time they took more precautions: environmental suits, medical scanners, armed security, and they landed in a temperate forest region, encountered large carnivorous creatures. The security team attempted to defend the landing party using standard stun weapons. The creatures were stunned but recovered within minutes. One crew member was killed before they could retreat to their shuttle. The report notes that the predators were impossibly resilient and adapted to extreme violence. Day closed his eyes. They were describing Earth's megafauna. Lions, bears, maybe even dinosaurs, depending on the exact date. Creatures that seemed normal to human eyes, but were apparently nightmares to species from gentler worlds. "There are 14 more reports," Velthar said. "Each expedition ended in casualties. The first civilization tried landing in different climates, different continents, even different time periods, as they monitored Earth over millions of years. Every single mission reported extreme danger. What specifically scared them? Day asked. Velthar pulled up a summary document. Everything. The high gravity caused structural stress in their crew. The weather patterns were described as catastrophically violent. One expedition experienced what we now call a thunderstorm. The electrical discharges terrified them. They'd never seen natural lightning before. Lightning is unusual. Most worlds with life have much calmer atmospheres, Velthar explained. Earth's weather is driven by extreme temperature differentials and high atmospheric energy. Your hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards are rare in the galaxy. One report describes crew members dying from exposure to cold. The temperature had dropped to what you would call 10 degrees Celsius. They froze to death in weather humans consider chilly. Day sat down, overwhelmed. Every normal aspect of Earth was a death trap to aliens. What about the microscopic life? You mentioned that earlier. Velthar pulled up biological analysis reports. This is where it gets truly concerning. Earth's microbial diversity is orders of magnitude higher than any other documented world. The competition between microorganisms has created an evolutionary arms race. Your bacteria, viruses, and fungi are incredibly aggressive and adaptive, but humans live with them just fine. Because humans evolved alongside them, Velthar said. Your immune system is constantly fighting off invasions that would overwhelm most species. A common cold virus from Earth could be lethal to the average council member. The first civilization scientists theorized that any complex life evolving on Earth would need to develop extreme defensive adaptations just to survive. A new voice spoke from the entrance to the vault. They were right. Both Day and Velthar turned to see Elder Krath, a being who rarely left his meditation chambers. His species was one of the oldest in the galaxy, even older than Velthar's people. His ancient eyes held deep sadness. Elder, Velthar said respectfully, bowing. We did not expect you. I heard about the discovery, Krath said, moving slowly into the vault. I came because I carry knowledge that has been passed down through my family for generations. Knowledge about the forbidden world. Day stood up. Your people knew about Earth? We were observers, Krath said. Millions of years ago, my ancestors were part of a coalition that monitored dangerous worlds. We watched Earth from a distance. We never landed. We learned from the first civilization's mistakes. What did you observe? Velthar asked. Krath settled himself onto a support frame. We watched life on Earth evolve. We saw the great extinctions, the rises and falls of dominant species. We saw creatures that would give any council species nightmares. Massive reptiles with teeth like swords. Flying predators with wingspans larger than most of our ships. Ocean dwellers that could swallow smaller vessels whole. The dinosaurs, Day said. If that is what you call them, yes, Krath replied. But they were only one era. We watched as small mammals survived where the giants fell. We watched them adapt, change, grow clever. And then, we saw your species emerge. Humans, yes. My ancestors debated whether to make contact. Some argued that any species surviving Earth's trials would be valuable allies. Others feared that such survivors would be too dangerous, too warlike, too unpredictable. We classified Earth as a Tier 5 death world, the highest danger rating in our system. But we're not dangerous, Day protested. Krath looked at him with something like pity. Young human, you don't understand. Everything about you is dangerous. Your bones are dense enough to withstand impacts that would shatter ours. Your muscles can exert force that would tear our tendons. You can run for hours without stopping because your cooling system is so efficient. You can survive on a diet that includes literal poisons that you've learned to process. You heal from injuries that would be fatal to most species. And perhaps most terrifying of all, you can choose to ignore your own pain and fear when necessary. Day wanted to argue, but the words died in his throat. Every point Krath made was technically true. We reviewed your historical records, Krath continued. Your wars, your survival stories, your exploration of your own planet's extreme environments. You've climbed the highest mountains for no reason except to prove you can. You've explored the deepest oceans in tiny vessels. You've crossed frozen wastelands and burning deserts. You do these things for recreation. Velthar pulled up a file on human history. Your species has survived multiple global catastrophes, ice ages, plagues, natural disasters. Each time, you adapted and survived. Your population has never fallen below recovery levels despite countless threats. What are you saying? Day asked quietly. We're saying that the first civilization was right to be afraid, Krath said. Not because humans are evil or malicious, but because you are survivors from a world that tests every living thing to its absolute limits. You are, by definition, the descendants of the toughest, smartest, most adaptable creatures Earth ever produced. You are apex predators wearing the mask of civilization. Day stood in silence, processing this. Everything about his species, his body, his mind, was shaped by Earth's demands. They weren't special. They were just one number. The Council discovered Earth's true name and immediately started panicking. The emergency council session had been going for 6 hours, and Ambassador Hyun was not allowed to attend. He paced outside the sealed chamber, watching through the transparent walls as delegates gestured wildly and argued. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language spoke volumes. Fear, anger, confusion. His communicator buzzed. It was Hana, Earth's cultural attaché stationed 3 levels below. Hyun? Are you seeing the news feeds? I've been stuck outside the council chamber, he replied. What's happening? Everything is happening. Someone leaked the story about Earth's designation as a forbidden world. It's all over the galactic networks. I'm getting calls from every species cultural ministry asking about human biology, human history, human everything. They're scared, Hyun. They're actually scared of us. Hyun closed his eyes. This was exactly what he'd feared. How bad is it? Turn on Galactic News Network Channel 3, Hana said. Hyun activated his tablet and pulled up the channel. The anchor, a floating jellyfish-like being named Tevrin, was speaking in urgent tones while images of Earth played behind him. To repeat our breaking story. The Galactic Council has confirmed that humanity's homeworld was designated as a forbidden planet by the first civilization over 10 million years ago. Sources within the Council report that multiple ancient expeditions to Earth ended in casualties due to the planet's extreme environment and aggressive life forms. The image changed to show a human walking down a street on the Council station. Other aliens moved away from the human, giving them a wide berth. Many species are now questioning whether humans should have been granted council membership 50 years ago, Tevrin continued. Some critics are calling humans Deathworlders and suggesting that their presence poses a potential threat to galactic stability. Hyun felt sick. 50 years of peaceful cooperation, erased by one archaeological discovery. His communicator buzzed again. This time it was Yuna, a human medical officer stationed in the council's medical bay. Hyun, I need to talk to you. Now. I'm kind of in the middle of a crisis. This is part of the crisis. I just had an hour-long interrogation from the council's chief medical officer. They wanted to know everything about human immune systems, human durability, human pain tolerance. They kept asking questions like, can humans really survive injuries that would kill other species? And, how many diseases can a human fight off simultaneously? What did you tell them? The truth. Which apparently was the wrong answer, because now they're even more terrified. Hyun, they don't have immune systems like ours. Most council species have very basic pathogen defenses. They rely on clean environments and medical intervention. The idea that humans just naturally fight off infections that would hospitalize them for weeks is blowing their minds. My teen, SDM, my teen mitevizing. Naturally, Hyun pinched the bridge of his nose. Anything else? They asked about human dietary habits. I may have mentioned that humans can consume ethanol for recreation. Also capsaicin. And theobromine. Insane. R. Insane. R. Oso. Capsaicin. In common language, Una. Alcohol, chili peppers, and chocolate. Substances that are toxic to most council species. We eat them for fun. By all the stars, Hyun muttered. It gets worse. They pulled up human medical records from the station. Remember when technician Minho broke his arm in that shuttle accident last year? Yes, he was back to work in 6 weeks. Right. For most council species, a broken arm is a career-ending injury that takes months to heal. If it heals at all. They saw that Minho's bone knit back together, stronger than before, and they started using words like regenerative and enhanced healing factors. Hyun, they think we're basically immortal. That's ridiculous. Is it? Think about it from their perspective. We heal fast. We fight off diseases easily. We can survive in environments that would kill them. And we live for nearly a century, on average. Some council species only live for 20 years. To them, we're ancient and unkillable. The door to the council chamber opened, and Councillor Morath emerged, his compound eyes fixed on Hyun immediately. Hyun ended his call with Una and approached the insectoid counselor. What's the council's decision? 3. We're still debating, Morath said. But I wanted to speak with you personally. I've been reviewing human military history. Of course he had. Morath's species were warriors by nature. And your species has been at war for most of its recorded history. Wars over territory, resources, ideology, religion. Sometimes, wars for no reason that makes sense to outside observers. You've developed thousands of different ways to kill each other. That's in our past, Hyun said defensively. We've been peaceful for over 200 years. 200 years, Morath repeated. Ambassador, do you know how long my species went between wars? 3,000 years. Do you know how long the Velthans went? 12,000 years. 200 years is nothing, a blink. What happens when your species encounters a real threat? What happens when the peaceful veneer cracks? We're not going to suddenly become violent. Perhaps not intentionally, Morath said. But you're adapted for violence. Your bodies are built for it. Your history is soaked in it. One of my analysts ran a simulation. If humanity decided to go to war with the Council, you could potentially win. That's absurd. You have thousands of ships, advanced weapons, and you have the ability to survive on 90% of the galaxy's planets without environmental support. You can eat local flora and fauna on most worlds. You can endure radiation levels that would kill us. You breed quickly. You adapt faster than any species we've ever seen. In a prolonged conflict, humanity would outlast us through sheer resilience. Hyun felt the walls closing in. Everything Morath said was technically accurate, but hearing it laid out like a military threat assessment was chilling. We don't want war. We've never wanted war. I believe you, Morath said quietly. But it doesn't matter what you want. It matters what you're capable of. The Council is afraid, Ambassador. And afraid, people make poor decisions. Back in her office, Hana was drowning in messages. Every cultural ministry in the Council wanted information. The questions ranged from reasonable to absurd. Do humans really have a fight-or-flight response that can allow them to lift objects several times their body weight? Can humans survive for weeks without food? Is it true that human females can grow new humans inside their bodies? That last one made her laugh despite the situation. Yes, it's called pregnancy. Most mammalian species do it. But the response she got back was pure terror. They do this while maintaining normal activity levels? The parasite doesn't kill them? It's not a parasite, it's their offspring. The cultural exchange that followed was painful. Hana tried to explain human reproduction, while the alien on the other end became increasingly horrified that human females could survive what they considered a catastrophic internal invasion. On a human colony world 3 systems away, June was packing his belongings. The university had politely, but firmly asked him to leave. The message had been clear. In light of recent revelations about human physiology and the potential safety concerns, we feel it's best if you complete your studies remotely. Safety concerns. He'd been at the university for 2 years. He'd made friends, joined study groups, even dated a nice Velthian girl named Sela. Now he was being kicked out because some ancient aliens had been scared of Earth millions of years ago. Sela had sent him a message. "I'm sorry, June. My parents don't want me associating with humans anymore. They say it's too dangerous. Dangerous." He'd never hurt anyone in his life. He studied poetry and ancient literature. The most violent thing he'd ever done was play competitive sports. Across the galaxy, human merchant Suho watched his business collapse in real time. Trade routes that had been profitable for years were suddenly canceled. Species that had been eager to buy human goods now refused to even respond to his calls. One client had been brutally honest. "We can't risk having Deathworlders on our station. What if something goes wrong? What if your superior biology makes you aggressive?" In Earth's government chambers, Director Taman was in an emergency meeting with the Planetary Council. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly," he said. "Humans across Council space are experiencing discrimination, job losses, and social isolation. Some are reporting threats." "What do we do?" one council member asked. "We have 3 options," Taman replied. 1. We withdraw from the Galactic Council entirely. 2. We wait it out and hope the panic subsides. 3. We actively demonstrate that we're not a threat. "How do we demonstrate that?" another member asked. "Everything about us apparently terrifies them. That's what we need to figure out," Taman said. "Because if we don't address this soon, we're going to be completely isolated." Back on the council station, Ambassador Hyun finally received permission to enter the chamber. The debate had reached a critical point. He stood at the human delegation podium, looking out at faces that had once been friendly and now showed only suspicion and fear. "Members of the council," he began. "I understand your concerns. I understand that learning about Earth's history has been shocking, but I ask you to remember one thing. Humans have been part of this council for 50 years. In that time, we have been peaceful, cooperative, and constructive members. We have contributed to scientific research, provided aid during disasters, and worked toward the betterment of all council species. Does none of that matter anymore?" Velthar spoke up. "It matters, Ambassador Hyun, but understanding changes context. We didn't know what you were. Now we do. Now we know that every human in council space is the product of the most extreme evolutionary pressure in the known galaxy. We know that your normal is our impossible. How can we trust that you won't one day revert to your violent origins? Because we choose not to," Hyun said firmly. "Yes, humans are capable of violence. We're also capable of compassion, creativity, and cooperation. We chose to reach for the stars not to conquer, but to explore and learn. We chose to join the council not to dominate, but to participate. Our history shows that we can overcome our worst instincts. Why won't you believe in that?" The chamber fell silent. Hyun Ku number. The council discovered Earth's true name and immediately started panicking. Director Taman stood in Earth's central command center, surrounded by screens showing human populations across the galaxy. Every screen told the same story: fear, isolation, and confusion. He rubbed his temples, fighting off a headache that had been building for 3 days straight. "Run the numbers again," he told his assistant. "Sir, the numbers haven't changed in the last hour. 3,000 humans have been asked to leave their positions off-world. 1,500 students have been expelled from alien universities. Human businesses are reporting a 92% drop in non-human clients. 7 colonies are requesting emergency evacuation because local species are refusing to interact with them. And the attacks? 47 reported incidents of violence against humans, mostly minor, pushing, property damage, verbal threats. But it's escalating. Security is concerned we might see something worse soon." Taman closed his eyes. 50 years of peace. Destroyed in less than a week. All because some ancient civilization had been afraid of Earth. What's the status on Ambassador Hyun's proposal? The Council has agreed to the demonstration. They're preparing a testing ground on a neutral planet. They want us to send representatives who can showcase human abilities while also proving we're not a threat. That's a contradiction, Taman muttered. How do we show them what we're capable of without scaring them more? Captain Minji entered the room, still in her fleet uniform. She looked tired, but determined. "You called for me? Director? The Council wants a demonstration of human capabilities. That includes military capabilities. I need to know if we can show them our defensive abilities without making them think we're preparing for war." Minji shook her head. "Respectfully, sir, that's going to be nearly impossible. Our entire defense strategy is based on adaptability and resilience. The same traits that let us explore dangerous planets are the ones that make us effective in combat. If we show them how we train, how we think tactically, how we've designed our systems to work in extreme conditions, they're going to see a species built for war. Even though we haven't fought a war in 2 centuries? Even though they're not looking at our intentions, sir, they're looking at our capabilities. And honestly, after reviewing the data they've released about other Council species, I can understand why they're scared." Taman looked at her sharply. "Explain." Minji pulled up a comparison chart on the main screen. "I've been studying the military capabilities of other Council species. Director, most of them are shockingly fragile by our standards. Their soldiers can't operate for extended periods without rest. They need constant supply lines. They can't survive in harsh environments without significant support infrastructure. Their casualty tolerance is extremely low. A military engagement that we would consider a minor skirmish would be devastating to them. Are you saying we could actually beat them in a fight? I'm saying we could outlast them. Not through superior technology or firepower, but through pure endurance. We can eat things they can't. Breathe air they can't. Survive temperatures they can't. Operate on planets they can't. If it came to prolonged conflict, we'd win just by not dying as fast as they do." Taman sat down heavily. "That's exactly what they're afraid of." "Yes, sir. Which is why this demonstration is so important. We need to show them that having these abilities doesn't make us aggressive. We need to prove that humans can be strong and peaceful at the same time." On the Council station, Ambassador Hyun was meeting with a team of human volunteers who had agreed to participate in the demonstration. Among them were Researcher Dae, Dr. Somin, a biologist, and Yuna, the medical officer. They sat in a private conference room, reviewing the Council's requirements. They want to observe human physical capabilities in various environments, Hyun read from the proposal. They want medical examinations to confirm human biological resilience. They want psychological evaluations to assess aggression levels. And they want demonstrations of human problem-solving abilities under stress. So basically they want to poke us, test us, and see if we bite. Yuna said dryly. "That's one way to put it," Hyun agreed. "But we don't have much choice. If we refuse, it will look like we're hiding something. If we comply, and they don't like what they see, we're labeled as dangerous. If we comply and hold back, they'll know we're holding back and become even more suspicious." Dr. Salmon leaned forward. "Then, we don't hold back. We show them exactly what humans are capable of, and we show them why that doesn't make us monsters. How? Day asked. Every advantage we have is something that evolved to help us survive on Earth. Our endurance, our healing, our adaptability, they see all of it as weapons. Then we change the context, Salmon said. We show them that these weapons have been used for good. Human endurance hasn't just been used for war. It's been used for exploration, for rescue missions, for building things that last. Human healing means we can work in dangerous conditions to help others without putting ourselves at fatal risk. Human adaptability means we can solve problems in environments where other species can't even survive to try. Hyun nodded slowly. You're saying we reframe the narrative. We're not Deathworld predators. We're Deathworld survivors who use our abilities to help, not hurt. Exactly. But we have to be honest about it. We can't pretend we're weak or harmless. We have to own what we are and show them why it's not a threat. On a distant human colony, June sat in his apartment, watching the news coverage of the demonstration preparations. His former classmate, a four-armed being named Kel, had sent him a message. I'm sorry about what happened. For what it's worth, I never thought you were dangerous. You were always kind to everyone. June appreciated the message, but it didn't change the fact that he'd been forced to leave. He typed a response. Thanks, Kel. I hope this demonstration helps people see that we're not monsters. I just want to finish my degree and maybe write some poetry. Not exactly scary stuff. Nundi and Clibre. Nundi? Kel's response came quickly. That's part of what scares people, I think. You seem so normal. So friendly. And then they learn that your normal body could survive things that would kill us. It's like finding out your neighbor is secretly a tank disguised as a person. June stared at the message. A tank, disguised as a person. Was that really how they saw humans? He looked at his hands, ordinary hands that had typed countless essays and held books and gestured during conversations. Hands that, according to the Galactic database, could exert grip strength sufficient to crush the bones of most council species. He'd never thought of himself as strong. He was just average. But average for a human was apparently superhuman for everyone else. Across space, Merchant Suho was having a similar revelation. He'd always been proud of his business. Proud of the connections he'd made across different species. Now those connections were severed. And he was stuck on a human station with warehouses full of goods nobody wanted to buy. One of his former clients had been honest enough to explain why. Suho, you're a good person. I know that. But my people are afraid. We keep learning new things about humans, and each thing is more frightening than the last. Did you know that humans can hold their breath for over 3 minutes? Do you know how terrifying that is? Most species pass out after 30 seconds without oxygen. You can survive 6 times longer. What else don't we know about you? Suho had tried to explain that it was just swimming adaptation, just something humans learned for sport or safety. But the client hadn't cared. That's the problem, they'd said. You don't even think it's special. To you, it's normal. To us, it's impossible. How can we do business with people who don't understand how different they are? Back on Earth, Director Taemin was coordinating with Ambassador Hyun via subspace communication. We're preparing a comprehensive presentation, Taemin said. We're pulling together examples of human achievement that showcase our abilities in positive contexts. Rescue missions in extreme environments. Medical innovations driven by our understanding of resilience. Engineering solutions for problems other species couldn't approach. Good, Hyun said. But we also need to address the elephant in the room. Our capacity for violence. Yes, we can't pretend it doesn't exist. Humans have fought wars. We've developed weapons. We've killed each other in massive numbers throughout our history. If we ignore that, they'll think we're being dishonest. If we acknowledge it without context, we confirm their fears. Taemin nodded. So we talk about how we moved past it. How we chose peace. How we built systems to prevent conflict. We show them that capacity for violence and choice to be peaceful can coexist. Will they believe it? I don't know. But it's the truth, and it's all we have. Captain Minji was conducting training exercises with the Earth Defense Fleet, but she'd ordered all aggressive maneuvers to be suspended. The last thing they needed was for Council observers to see humans practicing combat tactics. Instead, she'd focused the fleet on rescue and aid scenarios. "Sir, this feels wrong," one of her officers said. "We're warriors. We should be proud of our capabilities, not ashamed of them." "We are proud," Minji replied. "But pride isn't the same as aggression. Our job is to protect, not intimidate. If the Council sees us as a threat, we won't get the chance to protect anyone. We'll be isolated, quarantined, maybe worse. So we show them that our strength serves peace. And if they don't believe us, then we deal with that when it happens. But we try diplomacy first. That's what separates us from our ancestors. They fought first and talked later. We talk first." The officer nodded. But Minji could see the frustration in his eyes. She felt it too. It was galling to be judged for abilities they'd never used against the Council, for a history that ended centuries ago, for being born on a planet they hadn't chosen. But that was the reality they faced. Humanity had been revealed as Deathworlders, and now they had to prove they deserved a place in galactic society number. The Council discovered Earth's true name and immediately started panicking. The testing ground was a barren moon orbiting a gas giant in a neutral system. The Council had chosen it specifically because it was hostile to most forms of life. Thin atmosphere, extreme temperature swings, and rough terrain made it nearly uninhabitable. Perfect for testing whether humans were really as durable as the ancient records suggested. Ambassador Hyun stood in the observation dome with dozens of Council representatives. Below them, on the moon's surface, a team of human volunteers prepared for the demonstration. Among them were Researcher Dae, Dr. Soman, Medical Officer Yuna, and 3 others. Technician Minho, Engineer Haeun, and Biologist Kwan. "The atmospheric pressure down there is 60% of Earth standard," Counselor Velthar said, reading from his datapad. "Temperature ranges from -40 to +50 degrees Celsius depending on sun exposure. Oxygen content is minimal. Most Council species would require full environmental suits and mechanical assistance to survive down there for even an hour." "How long will the humans be down there?" asked Counselor Morath. 4 hours, Hyun replied. "And they'll be wearing only basic protective gear. No environmental suits. No mechanical enhancement." Morath's mandibles clicked nervously. "That seems excessive. If they're injured or killed, it will make the situation worse." "No, they volunteered," Hyun said firmly. "And they're confident they can handle it. This is what we need to show you. Humans aren't fragile. But that doesn't make us monsters." On the surface, Dr. Soman checked her team's equipment. They wore simple jumpsuits designed for temperature regulation, breathing masks to supplement the thin oxygen, and communication devices. Nothing more. She looked at the others and saw determination on their faces. "Remember the plan?" she said over the comm. "We demonstrate capabilities, but more importantly, we demonstrate control and purpose. We're not here to show off. We're here to prove we can be trusted." "Understood," Dae replied. He looked up at the observation dome, knowing hundreds of eyes were watching their every move. No pressure at all. The first test was simple endurance. The team was instructed to hike 10 kilometers across rough terrain, while Council observers monitored their vital signs. For most species, such a trek would be impossible without mechanical assistance. The gravity alone would be exhausting, and the temperature swings would be lethal. The humans set off at a steady pace. Within minutes, the Council observers were murmuring with concern as they watched the vital sign readings. "Their heart rates are elevated," one observer noted. "Should we stop the test?" "Doctor," Soman's voice came through the speakers. "Our heart rates are normal for physical activity. We're fine. But the readings show stress on your cardiovascular systems. That's called exercise," Yuna explained patiently. Our bodies are designed to handle this kind of stress. In fact, regular stress makes us stronger. It's called adaptation. The concept seemed to disturb the observers. One species representative, a crystalline being named Shard, spoke up. Your bodies become stronger through damage? That seems counterintuitive. 1. Muscles tear slightly during use and repair themselves stronger. Salmon explained, as she climbed over a boulder. Bones develop microfractures that heal denser. Our entire system is built on the principle of controlled damage and repair. It's how we adapt to new challenges. The observers watched in fascinated horror as the humans continued their hike. They maintained their pace despite the thin air. They navigated treacherous terrain without mechanical aids. When technician Minho slipped and scraped his hand on a rock, the observers gasped. Medical emergency. Someone called out. Minho looked at his hand, which was bleeding slightly, and laughed. It's just a scratch. I'm fine. You're injured. You're losing blood. Barely. It'll stop in a minute. He wiped his hand on his suit and kept walking. The casual dismissal of an injury that would hospitalize most council members sent ripples through the observation dome. Hyun could see the fear growing on some faces. This was the problem. Everything humans considered normal was terrifying to everyone else, but Velthar was watching with scientific interest rather than fear. Fascinating. Their pain tolerance and healing response are remarkable. But notice how they're helping each other. When one struggles, the others adjust their pace. They're social creatures, using their abilities cooperatively. The second test was more complex. The team reached a deep ravine that needed to be crossed. There was no bridge, only a narrow ledge that wound around the cliff face. The council had designed this challenge specifically because it would be impossible for most species. The exposure, the physical demands, the mental stress of the heights would all be overwhelming. Engineer Hayoon studied the ledge and pulled out a rope from her pack. We'll set up a safety line. Day, you're the lightest. You go first and secure the other end. Why are they bringing rope? Morath asked. Surely their superior abilities mean they don't need safety equipment. Hyun smiled slightly. Because they're smart. Being capable doesn't mean being reckless. They're taking precautions because that's the intelligent thing to do. Day made his way across the ledge with careful, measured movements. No, Yuna's voice came through. That's his fear response. It's heightening his awareness and coordination. Humans can feel fear and still function through it. The fear makes us more careful, not less capable. Once the rope was secured, the rest of the team crossed one by one. They moved slowly, deliberately, helping each other. When biologist Kwan froze halfway across, seemingly paralyzed by the height, Salmon talked him through it calmly. You've got this, Kwan. Just focus on the next step. Don't look down. We're all here with you. Kwan took a deep breath and continued. The observers watched in silence as the human overcame his fear through sheer willpower and the support of his teammates. They can override their survival instincts, Shard observed quietly. They feel fear, but choose to act anyway. That's either very brave or very dangerous. Maybe it's both, Velthar replied. But notice how they support each other. They're not leaving anyone behind. The third test was biological. Dr. Salmon had brought samples of Earth bacteria and viruses in sealed containers. With the Council's permission, she exposed herself to a mild pathogen that would be lethal to most Council species. This is a common cold virus from Earth, she explained as she opened the container and inhaled. For humans, it's a minor annoyance. We'll feel sick for a few days and then recover completely. Our immune systems will remember the virus and be able to fight it off even faster if we encounter it again. You're intentionally infecting yourself? An observer asked in horror, to demonstrate that it's not fatal. Yes. Humans are exposed to millions of pathogens throughout our lives. We have to be. Earth is full of them. Our immune systems are constantly working to keep us healthy. It's not a weakness. It's one of our greatest strengths. The observers watched her vital signs. Within an hour, they could see her immune response activating. White blood cell counts rose. Antibodies formed. Her body was fighting off an invasion that would kill most of them. And she was continuing with the demonstration, as if nothing was wrong. "I might sneeze a bit," Salmon said cheerfully. Yuna then gave a presentation on human medical capabilities. She showed scans of broken bones that had healed, wounds that had closed, even organs that had regenerated partial function after damage. "We're not invulnerable," she explained. "We can be hurt. We can die. But we're very good at not dying. Our bodies fight to survive in ways that most species' bodies simply don't. Our bodies not die. Our bodies not die. Our bodies not die." The fourth test was psychological. The team was presented with a complex problem. A simulated emergency where a council ship had crashed, and survivors needed rescue. But the environment was too dangerous for most species to operate in. The humans had limited time and resources to devise a solution. Hyun watched as his team huddled together, discussing options rapidly. They argued, debated, challenged each other's ideas. It looked chaotic to the orderly council observers. "Why are they in conflict?" Morath asked. "Shouldn't they present a unified response?" "They're not in conflict," Hyun explained. "They're brainstorming. Humans challenge ideas to strengthen them. We call it debate. It's how we find the best solutions." The team quickly formulated a plan. Dae would lead a direct rescue operation. Haeun would stabilize the crashed ship's structure. Kwan would assess environmental hazards. Somin and Yuna would provide medical support. Minho would establish a safe evacuation route. They moved with coordinated efficiency, each playing to their strengths. Within 30 minutes of simulated time, they'd extracted the hypothetical survivors and secured them safely. The observers ran the numbers and realized that no other council species could have accomplished the same task in the given time frame. "They work well under pressure," Velthar observed. "They don't panic. They adapt." But then something happened that nobody had planned for. Alarms blared in the observation dome. A real emergency. One of the council observation ships had suffered a mechanical failure and crashed on the moon's surface, far from the human team's location. "All personnel, this is not a drill," the station commander announced. "We have crew members down on the surface in a hostile environment. Rescue teams. Prepare for deployment." "How long until your teams can reach them?" Morath demanded. "At least 2 hours, sir. We need to prepare environmental suits and equipment for that terrain. 2 hours in those conditions will kill them," the commander said grimly. Hyun grabbed his communicator. "We heard. We're closest to the crash site. We can reach them in 20 minutes. You're not equipped for a real rescue operation. We're equipped enough. And we're the only chance those people have. We're going. We're. Before anyone could authorize or stop them, the human team was already moving. They ran across the hostile terrain at a pace that seemed impossible given the conditions. The observers watched in real time as the humans pushed their bodies to the limit, racing against time to save aliens who had spent the last week fearing them. They reached the crash site in 18 minutes. The ship had torn open, and 3 crew members were injured and exposed to the harsh environment. Without hesitation, the humans went to work. Haeun sealed the hull breach using emergency materials from the ship's own supplies. Somin and Yuna treated the injured, sharing their own oxygen and using their bodies to shield the aliens from temperature extremes. Minho carried 1 crew member who couldn't walk, bearing weight that should have been impossible in the thin atmosphere. Dae coordinated everything, his voice calm despite his elevated vital signs. "We've got you. You're going to be okay. Just stay with us." The council's rescue teams arrived 40 minutes later to find the situation already stabilized. The human team was exhausted, some showing signs of altitude, sickness, and temperature stress, but all 3 crash survivors were alive and stable. In the observation dome, silence reigned. Every delegate stared at the screens, showing the aftermath of the rescue. The humans hadn't hesitated. They hadn't calculated risk. They hadn't asked for authorization. They just acted to save lives, putting themselves at risk for people who feared them. Counselor Morath spoke first, his voice quiet. They could have let our people die. After everything we've put them through this week, they could have justified waiting for our rescue teams. But they didn't. No, Velthor said. They didn't. Because despite their capabilities, despite their Deathworld origins, their first instinct was to help, not harm. Hyun watched as medical teams attended to both the crash survivors and the exhausted human rescuers. Yuna was refusing treatment for herself until she'd confirmed the alien crew members were stable. Minho was helping the rescue coordinator despite barely being able to stand. They were exactly what he'd hoped to demonstrate. But the cost had been real risk, real exhaustion, real sacrifice. One of the rescued crew members, a young Velthian named Sela, was being interviewed by the station commander. "The humans saved us," she said, her voice shaking. "I was terrified when I saw them coming. I thought they might be dangerous. But they were so gentle, so careful. One of them gave me her breathing mask when mine failed. She could barely breathe herself, but she gave it to me." The interview was being broadcast across the galactic networks. The same networks that had been spreading fear about humanity for days were now showing a different story. In the medical bay, Dr. Salmon was finally accepting treatment for her altitude sickness and exhaustion. A council medical officer worked on her carefully, almost reverently. "Why did you risk yourself?" the doctor asked. "You could have died out there." Salmon smiled weakly. "Because they needed help. That's what we do. It's not about being strong or tough or scary. It's about using whatever abilities we have to help others. That's what being human means to us." Back in the observation dome, Hyun received an urgent message from Earth. Director Taemin's voice was jubilant. "Hyun, the coverage of the rescue is everywhere. Public opinion is shifting. They're calling your team heroes. They are heroes." Hyun said simply. "They always were. The galaxy just needed to see it." Counselor Velthar approached him. "Ambassador Hyun, I believe I owe your species an apology. We let fear override reason. We saw your capabilities as threats rather than gifts. Today, you showed us the truth." "What truth is that?" Hyun asked. "That humanity's strength comes not from your Deathworld adaptations, but from your choice to use those adaptations for good. You could be conquerors. You could be predators. But you choose to be protectors instead. That's not something that can be explained by evolution or biology. That's something that comes from who you are as a people." Morath joined them. "The council will convene tomorrow to formally address this situation. I expect the outcome will be very different from what we anticipated a week ago." Hyun looked down at his exhausted team, who were being celebrated by the very people who had feared them days before. June would be allowed back to his university. Suho's business would recover. Humans across the galaxy would no longer face discrimination. But more than that, the galaxy had learned something important. Being strong didn't mean being dangerous. Coming from a harsh world didn't make you harsh. And sometimes the people who looked most frightening were exactly the ones you wanted by your side when things went wrong. The demonstration was over. But the real work of building trust and understanding was just beginning, despite it. Or maybe because of it. Ambassador Hyun stood alone in his quarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were suffering because of fear and ignorance. Students expelled from universities. Workers fired from jobs. Families worried about their safety. All because an ancient civilization had been scared of mosquitoes and thunderstorms. He pulled up a message from his daughter, who lived on Earth. "Dad, people keep asking me if you're okay. They're worried that the council might do something drastic. Are we safe?" He wanted to tell her yes. He wanted to promise that everything would be fine. But he'd been a diplomat long enough to know better than to make promises he couldn't keep. Instead, he wrote, "I'm doing everything I can to show them who we really are. Trust in that. Trust in us." It would have to be enough. LD see the internal struggle on many faces. They wanted to believe him. But fear was a powerful force. Finally, Councillor Morith stood. Ambassador Hyun, the Council proposes a demonstration. Allow us to observe human capabilities in a controlled environment. Let us see firsthand what humans are capable of, both in terms of survival abilities and behavioral restraint. If you can prove that your species can be trusted despite your Deathworld origins, perhaps we can move past this panic. Hyun looked at the rows of delegates, all waiting for his answer. He thought about Jun, forced to leave his university. About Suho, watching his business die. About Yuna, interrogated like a dangerous specimen. About every human who was suffering because the galaxy had decided they were monsters. We accept, he said. You had to become, to survive on a planet that the galaxy considered hell. The Council is panicking, Velthar said. Now that they know where humans come from, they're reassessing everything they thought they knew about your species. What will they do? Day asked. That depends on what else we find, Velthar replied, pulling up more files. And on how humanity responds to being labeled as Deathworlders. Day looked at the endless archives surrounding them and realized with growing dread that they had only scratched the surface. The more they learned, the more terrifying humanity appeared to the galaxy, and there was nothing he could do to change the truth. What we're dealing with, Hyun repeated, anger rising in his voice. We're not some threat. We're people, just like all of you. That, Velthar said quietly, is exactly what concerns us. You think you're just like us, but the first civilization, with all their wisdom and technology, marked your world as forbidden. We need to understand why. The vote was called. 46 species voted in favor of the investigation. Only humanity abstained. As the chamber emptied, Hyun stood alone in the human section, staring at the holographic display of Earth's ancient name, the Cradle of Endings. He pulled out his communicator and sent an urgent message back to Earth. We have a problem.